In this chapter, you'll create a simple database, connect to it, and write PHP scripts to insert, update, and delete data. Example code in snippet form will give you a sound platform from which to study the code's syntax in the context of why we need it, and from there develop your own variations to the code. Don't worry too much about all the details in the code as you watch the videos. Focus on the broad concepts and the process, and you'll gradually become increasingly familiar with the syntax as we use it in developing our CRM project. In order for PHP to talk to a database, it needs to do two things. It needs to connect to the MySQL server and then connect to the specific database. Let's now look at how we do this. In a fresh code window, open your snippets folder and open snippet basics, PHP tags simple, to put some PHP tags in the code pane. Now open snippet SQL, DB connections, MySQL connect alpha CRM, and immediately save this as testdb.php. Click Save and enter testdb.php so we can see the syntax better. We need three parameters to connect to the MySQL data server. We need the host name, a valid username, and the correct password for the username. After that, we only need one further parameter, the database name, to connect to a specific database. The first line of this snippet introduces us to our first PHP variable. This line of code says, create a text variable called hostname and set its value to the text value localhost. It's worth noting here that all PHP variables start with a dollar symbol, can only contain alphanumeric characters or the underscore character, and they must begin after the dollar with a letter or an underscore. When we refer to a variable by name, we usually don't bother articulating the dollar symbol, so for $username, we just refer to it as the variable username. The dollar is taken for granted. I hope you can guess what the next three non-empty lines are saying. Okay? Set the value of the variable username to the text value root. This was the root or master username set up as default by XAMPP. The next line sets the value of password to the empty string. That is, there's no password yet for the root user. Now I can almost hear your gasps of amazement. If you have any notion of security, then you'll quite rightly be horrified at this. Clearly, we've not set up any security for our local host server. We will deal with this later, but for now take solace in the fact that this is a local implementation with no sensitive data. In any case, you wouldn't do this sort of thing on a Windows platform in real life, and the setup for commercial grade systems is really quite different than that for home computers. Even if we were to put in a password value here, it would be totally available to anyone who wanted it, since this piece of code needs to go into the web accessible part of our server space. So we'll deal with all these securities at some later time. For now, bear with me on this and let's focus on the server and database connections rather than the security. These four statements above the current line indicator in the code window both declare and assign values to the variables. PHP is said to be loosely typed, so variables do not need separate declaration before they can be assigned values. Both are done in a single assignment statement of the form variable value. A single == symbol in PHP means is assigned the value of. Remember this, it'll be important later. I'm even going to repeat that so there's no misunderstanding. A single == symbol in PHP means is assigned the value of. Moving past the assignment of these four variables, observe the construct MySQL_connect with its three parameters, hostname, username, and password. This tells MySQL to open a connection to the said hostname, using the username and password supplied. MySQL Connect is said to be a function as it returns a value, either a valid MySQL link identifier, which would be interpreted as true by PHP, or it returns false if the connection failed. That's why we assign the returned value a variable dbConnected. Firstly, to use later in the DB selection if it's successful, or to trap and report the error if it fails. MySQL select DB works in a very similar way, but it uses the valid MySQL link identifier returned by a successful call to MySQL Connect, and it also returns a value. You'll very often see the clause or die with some stuff in brackets. Use after calls to these functions. Don't use the die clause. It's lazy programming and bad practice for several reasons. But like security, we'll deal with error trapping a bit later.